I want to ask a question on maybe some structural changes, and what do you think the differences between like Kentucky and California? Like Kentucky, we have 120 counties, and you have much fewer counties in California. Then also in Kentucky, we have 7 individual public universities, and you have mostly a combined system with the University of California. Do you think some structural changes like that are things which are very hard to do, but are things we should look at?
Well, the structural issues are important, but I think collaboration has to work across structures. I had an opportunity, actually, to work in Northern Kentucky with Jim Vertuba at Northern Kentucky University and a number of people who created something called Vision 2015 a few years ago. That region, as you know, has several counties in Northern Kentucky. There's not one single city that dominates. The university, the counties, the business community came together and actually created a vision for the community that was really quite precise about economic opportunity, educational attainment, using this framework, quite frankly. And what was really interesting to me was they didn't let the structures hold them back. Now, in the end, they have talked about new collaborative ways. They have a regional chamber of commerce. They're talking about ways to work across these boundaries. So I don't think you need to stop with structures. I've also worked here in Louisville over the years, going back for many, many years. I've worked on issues that did result here in a consolidation of the city and the county. Now, in that case, they did deal with a structural change, but what was interesting about the Louisville experience was it took about 10 or 15 years to get that done, and they had sort of an understanding, if you will, a roadmap was based on the idea of working together across a whole series of boundaries. It was really a collaborative agreement that they came up with to make that happen. So there's some good examples, I think, in trying to overcome structural barriers here in Kentucky. I think the key to both cases, both in Northern Kentucky and in Louisville that I'm familiar with, was the role that the business community has played. Foundations have played a role, particularly here in Louisville, and also the universities. In the case of Northern Kentucky, those of you, I don't know, who are from Northern Kentucky, but I think you know the role that Northern Kentucky University and Jim Vertuba, the president, has played as a leader there. So I think, again, it takes a collaborative effort. If we just rely on local government to solve the regional problem, it cannot be done because they are constrained, because they're competing with each other for tax dollars. They're competing. It's a zero-sum game. So you have to bring the business community in. You have to bring in the broader community, and hopefully, even though I know there are a series of a number of universities here within regions of Kentucky, those universities can play a role. We had after the work we did in Northern Kentucky, we actually worked with the Higher Education Commission here in Kentucky and actually helped each one of the regional universities try to work on this regional stewardship idea. The legislature, in fact, in Kentucky passed a law that actually provided some funding to the universities to do regional stewardship in Kentucky, and actually I was involved in some training around that. So I'm very comfortable that this model is not, unique to any place, as long as you worry about people, not structures. One of my mentors on this was John Gardner, who wrote, was involved in Common Cause and was one of the founders of our effort here in regional stewardship. And he said it's always important to focus on people and relationships rather than on organizations and structures. So this is really about building people and relationships, and that's how you build the trust and the social capital that's necessary to be a prosperous economy.
I just wanted to say I appreciate what you said about vital centers and essentially the arts contributing to quality of life and then to basically economic growth in a real way, not just a perfunctory, this is a nice thing to have kind of a way. And also the importance of alleviating the educational disparity in order to sort of create the type of people that have a holistic understanding of, have that kind of worldview to be able to do this. But earlier in the day, we heard a presentation about education that sort of measured everything by math test scores and sort of, what do you think the education model needs to look like in order to create these civic entrepreneurs and people that have a holistic understanding and the creativity and the ability to innovate in order to do these types of collaborations?
Well, you raised a couple of points there that I think are really important. One is that all analysis, and I think the work that's been done by this center has shown the importance of education across the board, getting more people to graduate, higher skills. how important that is for economic prosperity. There's almost a one-to-one relationship there, and that's just proven out by every economic study. On the other hand, you've raised a very, very important point, and I would just put my views on the table. We need well-rounded, creative people that are both left brain, right brain. Now, we need math skills. We need to have people with good basic skills to be able to compete in this marketplace. No matter what job you're going for, you need to have basic math skills just to perform. But on the other hand, I think we do tend to, because of budget constraints and others, we're tending to neglect art and culture and creativity, which is the right brain. And I think most people understand that around the world today, and some of those scores show it, other regions around the world are doing well in math, is what probably better than we are, and they show on those scores. We have to be both creative in terms of our ability to solve problems, as well as having these basic skills. So if the point is that if we're overly concerned with just taking tests of a particular type, let's say math, I think we don't want to overdo that. We want to have an overall capability to train people. And there's a friend of mine who's written some books about this, but Daniel Pink wrote this fascinating book last year called The Whole New Mind, about the work that's been going on now in terms of neuro studies and trying to understand how we think. And we need to have both, the whole mind, right and left brain, to compete in the world that we're moving into. So it's really about creativity. Yeah.
I had a question, kind of two-part question. Regional stewardship, you emphasized on collaboration and regional stewardship, but who pulls together the collaboration, and what role does government have to play into that? Even though you want to be equitable, but government should have some role in pulling that together. Yeah. And then also, have you seen any examples where there was unwillingness from the community to collaborate, and what was done to kind of remedy that, and people were able to calm their egos or their hang-ups in order to work together? Right.
Well, the second part of your question is, how do you get people to the table? And I think information is extremely important. We do something in our work, we've done it for 15 years in Silicon Valley, called the Index of Silicon Valley. We've developed this in other places, Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, and your work here and then the long-term center is important, policy center is important. Good information is a way to get people to the table. Showing the gap between potential and opportunity to say, look, there's much more that we can do if we come together. So good information is a good catalyst to get people started. And I think indicators are important in that, and communicate it to people to understand what the gaps are, and really raise the temperature, if you will, to say, if we don't do this, we're going to fall behind, and what the connections are in terms of prosperity. Now, this other part of your question is local government. Local government and government in general has to be at the table because they're part of the solution, but they can't only be at the table. I think our experience has been that it's really important to try to get everybody at the table. So you get local government, but you also get business. Now, business can play an important role at the regional level because they're not so constrained. For instance, in most regional metropolitan areas, local governments tend to be separated in a variety of different ways, fragmented. But our business might have more of a regional labor market. It might have more of an ability to think broader. Bringing business to the table can help bring, if you will, some glue. The universities play an important role to this. Again, putting good information at the table and also being possibly a neutral convener. And then where it's possible, not every community has this, but community foundations or nonprofits play an important role as well to sort of bring another perspective and in some cases help provide some resources for these activities. And so when we've put these collaboratives together, local government is important. The constraint is if it's just government trying to drive, there is a competitive aspect there because of the way our tax structure works. There's most places, whether it's sales tax or property tax, people are mostly thinking about what they have to do to bring revenues to their jurisdiction rather than how you grow the pie for everyone. So I think it's really important that these collaborative efforts be viewed as a positive sum rather than a zero sum. Great, thanks.